Right. It's our first webinar, so
You've never done this.
There will be some trial and error. Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me turn my phone off.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's go for airplane mode. Okay.
I'm guessing everybody can already see and hear us, not? Maybe somebody can say something in the chat about that.
I think so. Yeah, maybe you can confirm in the chat.
Is there a chat? There is no chat.
Yeah, there is. There should be a chat.
Okay.
Okay, great, Rebecca.
Rebecca can hear us. That's good to hear.
And welcome today. So, yeah, Jan, today we are going to talk about, or you are going to talk about how to give and how to build a sales demo and how to build a sales demo playbook. Shall we just start or wait? I think we're 8 attendees now.
Yeah, and I got a note from a few people that they couldn't make it and they requested the recording. So also welcome to all people watching the recording, and bear with us. This is our first time that we are giving a webinar with Zoom. I should know how to do this because I've done this a million times in the past. But mainly using GoToWebinar, so it's my first time on Zoom as well. And for logistics, Johan will keep an eye on the chat channel and the hands, so I can focus on presenting and perhaps a brief demo if we have time for that. But my focus really today is to talk about how to build a sales demo playbook. And we will start a little bit with the contents of how a sales demo playbook should look like, and then we'll also talk a little bit about the logistics of building an actual playbook. It looks like everything else is set up and running, not Johan? Am I right? Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so yeah, welcome all. And today I'm going to share with you how to build and use a sales demo playbook. I have probably done this a few hundred times in my life, so I will be sharing some of my personal experience with you. Of course, no two companies are the same, so make sure to take this knowledge and apply it to your own world. So your own world can be different products, can be a different target group, can be a different type of sales that you are running. But you will find quite a few things are applicable across the board. So hopefully you can take that away with you. So in today's session, we're going to look at the structure of a sales demo, preparing for a demo, what I like sales representatives to do before every demo that they give. Then we will briefly talk about the demo itself, but today's session is not really about the demoing itself, and about closing your demo or deal, and then also what some follow-up steps can be that you can use if you're doing a sales demo. The focus will very much be about software products, which is my background in demoing and selling. So that's what I will be sharing with you as a group today. Okay. So globally, looking at structure, how should you structure your typical sales demo? Begin with a good preparation. And even if you do this, some sales representatives do this maybe 5 to 10 times every day. Even if you do this 5 to 10 times a day, it is important to make the time to prepare for a demo. A demo is something that is very expensive to do because you're investing a lot of time of yourself, but also of your listener, attendee of your demo. So make sure that you come well prepared to this. Depending on your sales approach, the beginning of your demo should be reserved to qualify and to re-qualify. It looks like somebody's raising a hand, Johan. Is this something we need to interactively do, or are you doing this in the background by chat?
Yeah, maybe Luke has a question. Luke, if you want, you can use the chat for questions.
Yeah,
if you
that's
want.
a good point.
So far, I don't. No, it was an accident. So I think we can move on.
All right. Okay. So depending on how your business is structured, this is the moment to qualify, or if you do this before your demo, which is the preferred way, but not always a possibility, it is time to re-qualify your prospect. A very important aspect during your demo is to ask the right questions. And also, if you get a question from your prospect, to make sure that you really understand the real question, and the real question is typically not what your prospect is asking you. It's also important to agree on a clear next step, preferably before you begin a demo and not at the end. And then the actual demo, and after the demo, confirm that the clear next step that you typically would agree upon before the demo is also confirmed with your prospect. All right, let's zoom into the preparation of the demo. This is I thought my phone was off, but it's apparently not entirely off. In the preparation, it's important to qualify or re-qualify your opportunity. If it's coming from marketing, they probably qualified it in their terms. Now, as a sales representative, you have to go through your own qualification criteria, and typically those are the traditional budget, authority, need, and timeline. But maybe in your business it's slightly different. So that's something that you and your company has to agree upon on what your qualification criteria are. And I would also confirm and reconfirm your demo with your prospect, not only a calendar invite, but also perhaps by giving a phone call if it's something really important, or by two-way email communication. So sending out maybe some questions to your prospect, making sure that it's on everybody's agenda. And what I also like to prepare before a demo is what I call a contract before you start. And that can be a brief contract, but it can also be a little bit longer. And typically that also sets the stage for your follow-up action. So in my case, typically before I start a demo, I will say, dear prospect. Well, I wouldn't literally say dear prospect, but let's, for the sake of this session, let's pretend that Johan is my prospect. And I'll say, hi, Johan, thanks for your time today. If I'm correct, we set aside 50 minutes for this demo. Does that still work for you? And then you get confirmation of that. So this is like your first mini contract that you've set, which is confirming that the time agreed upon is still there. And then you go to a bit broader contract, and you'd say something along the lines of, yeah, I've prepared a demo, and hopefully if during or at the end of the demo you don't see a fit with your organization and our offering, if you don't see a fit, are you okay telling me thanks, but no thanks, we're not going to do it? And usually your prospect will say, yeah, I'm happy to do that. And then you can set the stage for your follow-up action, which would usually look something like, on the other hand, if you do see a fit, are you okay in taking the last 2 minutes of this demo to mutually agree on a clear next step? And that could be a trial, or that could be a proof of concept, depending on your situation. And again, you wait for confirmation from your prospect. And now you've set the stage to also take those last 2 minutes of your demo and agree on a clear next step. Because the last thing you want is give a demo, and then here at the end of the demo, we're going to think about it. We're going to think about it is probably the most deadly sentence that you can get at the end of the demo, because it could mean, but this is quite unusual, that the prospect actually has to think about it. I mean, it could be a big deal that you're trying to, a big product, service that you're trying to sell. But typically when a prospect says we're going to think about it, it's just a friendly way of saying, no, we're not going to do it, or this is way beyond our budget, or this is way beyond my decision capability, or something along those lines. So by having this contract before you start your demo, you can avoid those kind of situations. And in fact, if your biggest fear is that your prospect is going to say that, then this may also be the right moment to address that. Let's move on. Okay, a couple of technical tips for your demo, and you guys probably know most of these, but it's always good to once in a while reconfirm these technical tips. First of all, in terms of a webcam, make sure that you have a proper camera. Make sure that you have your lighting set up, that you're not sitting in the dark. Or like I saw yesterday, I got a demo from somebody and it was starting to become dark, and this person was clearly not set up for that, so it turned really dark halfway during the demo. It doesn't make a great impression. In terms of webcam, also make sure that it is set up sort of at eye level, so that your opponent has at least a bit of a feeling that he's looking you in the eye. And we're all starting to get used to Zoom meetings in the past years, but still it's a lot more personal if you can look somebody in the eye at eye level, instead of looking, let's say you have a laptop and it's sitting down below you, that you're looking down at somebody doesn't feel right. For your sound system, it's a good idea to get a good microphone and or a headset. Personally, I have a microphone hanging here on an arm, which works quite well. If you do have a noisy background, maybe you do have a dog and or children, then probably a headset is going to be a better choice to filter as much background noise out as possible. Another important tip, and actually Jan and I sort of semi-failed for this test, because we were under the impression that the Zoom webinar was going to work exactly the same as Zoom meetings, but it didn't. So we started a little bit flimsy. It is always a great idea to test your setup before you do a demo. So I guess Johan, we have to apply our own lessons to ourselves as well the next time.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to create a playbook how to prepare a webinar.
That is not a bad idea. Drink your own champagne. Another important aspect is to turn all sounds and notifications off. For some reason, one of my sounds is still coming in, and I'm sorry for that. Typically, modern phones have a one-way setting to turn it on Do Not Disturb, and then that all those sounds go away and off. If you do demos with your browser, then it is a good idea to move your personal bookmarks and files, maybe files that you have sitting on your desktop, out of the way, to give a better professional impression. And last but not least, make sure that you have a backup plan. What are you going to do if your computer crashes and fails? Will you have something to continue your demo on. In particular, if this is an important demo, maybe for a group of people, maybe a demo that cannot be repeated. If it's a one-on-one demo, this may be less of an importance, but usually it is a good idea to have a backup computer. Or if your demo is mainly browser-based, then you can probably also use, which is what I do, an iPad as a backup to your system. All right. The steps that I like to take before I begin a demo, and the first one is qualification or requalification. We briefly touched on this. And for us in our organization, also the previous companies I worked with, that means having a clear understanding of budget, of authority, of need, and of timeline. And budget, the typical question would be, are the lights still on at your customer? Then they can probably also pay for your software. However, that is not the correct budget question. The correct budget question is, are they willing to take their money and give it to you for your offering? That is the question, not if they have money at all, but are they prepared to give it to you for whatever the price of your service is? Make sure to find that out before you give a demo. It's really a waste of time. And actually, I was talking to one of our prospects recently, and they have a security product for mobile application development. And he was telling me that he only sells 1 out of 10 demos. And in questioning how that was happening, he told me our product the pricing starts at $100,000. So it is way out of price range for the typical mobile application developer. So I demo my product and the developers love it. And they say, we want this, we want this, we want this. Then I tell them it's $100,000 and then they say, we don't have that budget. So 9 out of 10 of his demos were essentially useless because his budget was out of reach of his prospect. So make sure that you get at least a range because you may not know the exact price, depending on your pricing schedule, depending on the amount of users or adoption of your product. It may not be 100% clear what your pricing is going to look like, but make sure that you have at least discussed the range. So you could say or ask the customer, let's pretend that you like this demo, then how many users do you expect that our product is going to have? And then the prospect may say something like between 20 and 100. And then you could say, well, in that range, we charge $10 per user per month. How does it sound to you? And then find out and hear if that is a workable budget for the prospect. If it's not, then this may be a good moment to mutually with your prospect and obviously in a respectful way agree that there is no need for a demo. I would not enter in a demo if a budget has not been discussed. Of course, if your product is priced very low and that the price is absolutely not going to be an issue, then you may skip this question altogether. But I would preferably have this discussion. The second one is authority. And I know that a lot of traditional sales trainers always say you have to always sell to the top of an organization. You always have to go to the CEO and get him in front of you for a demo. With many SaaS products, or if you're selling to larger organizations, that's not realistic. But you still do want to have a good overview of authority, and that may be the CEO of a company, but it could also be a lot lower in the organization. If you look at a lot of technical tools, then typically that is not decided at all by the CEO. For example, at Playbookify, Jan is a CEO, but he doesn't have to authorize our technical team to buy a technical tool that they may need to get their job done. That could happen perfectly without. But you do want to figure out what are the different levels of authorization within a company. And frequently sales representatives make the mistake of going too high instead of going lower, because very frequently, for example, if you look at technical tools, those are actually picked and chosen by the developers themselves. So let's say you have a development team who absolutely hates, let's say, Atlassian Jira, just to pick a random tool that's often used. If they absolutely hate it, then they're probably never going to authorize their manager, to buy that kind of product. So keep in mind that authority may be a lot lower with the users themselves and not all the way up in an organization.
Yeah, and Jan, by the way, I think Marco from Plus Growth is confirming your point here. If I don't know the budget of the client, then I start before the demo with pricing, so they won't be shocked. So that's confirmation, I guess.
Okay, cool. That's good to hear. Yeah.
And maybe a question around that: is it better to start the demo and ask them before starting with the actual demo, or should you call the customer or the prospect a few days before to ask them if they have sufficient budget?
Well, if you get the chance, then yes, that would be great. So if you have the chance to do a discovery, that's often called a discovery call, in which you agree with the customer before our demo, because it's maybe before a group. So let's say that your demo is going to be for 5 or 6 people. Then you could have a discovery call with your central contact and ask some of these questions before, to keep your demo time efficient. Because to be very honest, the steps that we're seeing here could take up half of your demo time. And if it's a smaller group setting, that could be perfectly acceptable. But if there are 5 or 6 people who came just for the demo and they have no need to talk about the other items, then yeah, discovery call would be a great option. Increasingly, I'm seeing with SaaS products that the scheduled demo is the first time that you get a chance to talk to your prospect. So maybe you have a self-scheduling demo capability on your website. And actually, we at Playbookify have that as well. So if you go on our website and you click on schedule a demo, then you're planning a demo directly in one of our calendars. And then most probably the first time we would ever talk to you was at the demo time. So then we would at the beginning of this meeting ask these questions. And you know, if your prospect looks a little bit in a hurry, you could use the start-stop technique. So let's say that you're in the middle of your budget question and your prospect is maybe a very red person, if you look at DISC, and says, all right, let's do the demo now. Then you could briefly start your demo, maybe by showing the login screen or the first screen of your application, and then halfway stop and say, oh, by the way, I totally forgot to ask you, why are you guys looking at products like this? If I may spend a minute on that, if you don't mind. So there could be a way to go into the need. So what you definitely want to find out from your prospect is what is the need, and typically that is pain. The most powerful is pain in the past. What has happened in the past that the prospect is looking at solutions like yours, and can we address those needs or those pains of the prospect? If we can't, then maybe we shouldn't be giving a demo. Maybe they need a completely different product. And then last but not least is timeline. Is you don't have a clear overview of what the timeline of your prospect is. In my sales days at Servoy, the previous company I worked for, we were selling a development platform to other software companies. And typically software companies only decide once in every 5 to 7 years for a new platform. So if I was visiting a prospect that had just switched programming platform maybe last year, then most probably they were never going to decide for my technology. So I was probably doing a demo for nothing, just to keep them informed on what's happening in the market. So you're mainly spending time on, we call that unpaid consulting. You're mainly spending time on unpaid consulting to inform the prospect about what are the things that are going on in the market space. So you probably shouldn't be doing that. Another important aspect, and I know this is tougher in groups than it is in small settings, is what should be demoed. So you should discuss with your prospect what his needs are, and only demo those. So don't, and I know this is tough, especially for technical people, because you're very proud of your product, and maybe you just built this extremely cool new user management system, and you really want to show it off. But if that wasn't discussed, then you may be showing something that they are not going to like, and maybe for whatever reason they don't like the new icons that you put in place in that section of your application. So we call that do not paint pictures. Don't paint pictures in the eye of your prospect that he doesn't see. So make sure that you're only showing the prospect what has been discussed in the need section. And if necessary, after this whole conversation, repeat the contract before you start. So give, and again, if you do a contract, always begin with giving the prospect the opportunity to say no. So always say, if you don't like my demo or the product for whatever reason, then please tell me no thanks, but we're not going to do it. And then on the other hand, if you do see an opportunity of us working together, do you mind if we set aside 2 minutes at the end of this meeting to discuss what a clear next step would be? All right. Any questions so far? We will see them in the chat, not or people raising hands.
No, I don't think so. Are you aware of the time?
I'm aware of the time, yes.
We are halfway there.
It is 9:26, yes. Are you hoping for a demo, Johan? Is that what you're looking for? And so in terms of reconfirming need and pain, this is an example of how you do that. So if you did your pain step correctly, then you will have heard 1 or 2 or 3 problems, and this is the time to reconfirm them. And then also, what is that pain causing? This is causing X, Y, and Z. And then also, if possible, to translate that into actual cost of what those pains are costing the organization. And typically, what is the beliefs frequently happening in your prospect's head that you have to keep in mind as a sales representative? The person you're demoing to probably thinks, I need to maintain control of this process. I need to look important. My boss needs to know what I'm doing. I don't want to be manipulated by this salesperson. I need to look competent. So keep in mind, these are often the thoughts going to your head of your prospect and what you will have to deal with during your demo process. So you may be getting questions about your product that are not actual questions, but are just being asked for your prospect to look important. So when you get those kind of questions, make sure to return those questions with another question, and we'll zoom into that a little bit over here. So typically, when your prospect says, do you guys have multi-factor authentication? That may be an honest question. Maybe he needs that, but it could also be just a statement he's making to look important to you or to his boss, who may be in the room as well. So whenever you get a question, you should typically return that with the question, and of course in a respectful and mindful manner. And you're not the Gestapo trying to get everything out of the conversation, but in a friendly way. You want to, and if you really want to help your prospect, you need to know what the question behind the question is before you can answer it and stay in charge of the conversation. All right, for time's sake, we will keep moving, because I also promised you guys a brief demo on how this demo playbook would look like. Also an important aspect, and I know I'm not doing this because this is a webinar, but in a sales demo, you typically would have the other people unmuted, and you would try to have and build up an active conversation with your prospect, this also keeps them engaged and also allows you to focus on what parts of your demo are important. So don't talk for more than a minute. Make sure to stop yourself. For example, when let's say you demo a capability that is part of the need of your prospect, you could pause and say, is this what you guys were looking for? Or if your prospect is not looking very happy when you showed something, you could also go a little bit negative and say, it doesn't look like this is important for you guys. That will get them engaged, and maybe they'll say, well, this is not important for us at all. So maybe they are confirming that it is not important, and then you could go to another part of your demo, or you could go back to the need, and you could say, oh, I thought this was important because you mentioned A, B, and C, and then have again a discussion. Is this important or not at all? I always find it important to use realistic data. So I very frequently see demos full of lorem ipsum sentences. Please don't do that. If you demo your product, make sure to either get a real data set, or if it's confidential, maybe it's financial data and you don't want to share it, then use data that is as realistic as possible, also specifically to your prospect. So let's say you have a product that could be used in healthcare and in the finance industry, and you're now demoing to a finance guy, then maybe showing hospital data does not make a lot of sense. So show and use data that makes sense to your prospect, so they can realistically see themselves using your product. And again, don't demo what wasn't discussed and agreed upon. So once you do your demo at the end, what I find a good sentence to close your demo off is to ask for a rating. So at the end of the demo, ask your prospects, on a scale of 0 to 10, how would you rate this demo, or our product, or our service, or me showing this to you? And if you get a very high score, then I would always ask why so high. So let's say they gave you an 8. Why so high? Or you could ask, what should I do to get a 10? And then you could find out either what you could perfect on your demo, or what your product is maybe lacking. And then a nice and open question to your prospect is what should we do next? So don't try to paint the next step very clearly yourself, or say, do we have an order? Do we have a deal, or something like a traditional sales guy would say? But more an open question: what should we do next? And then try to get a very specific an action as specific as possible. Try to avoid we're going to think about it, or if even after you did a contract before you start, and now your prospect is going to tell you, we're going to think about it, this may be the good moment to call him out on a sentence like that. So if your prospect now says, we're going to think about it, you could say something like, well, Johan, sometimes when prospects tell me we're going to think about it, it's kind of their polite way of saying we're not going to do it, but they don't really want to tell that to me. And to be very honest, I can take a no. So if you don't see you ever using our products, I'm happy to take a no at this point in time. And then, you know, frequently you will get prospects telling you, no, we're not going to do it, and that's fine. Then you can close the book on this opportunity and move on to other and to your next opportunity. All right. The most important follow-up steps. Preferably your follow-up is whatever you agreed before you did the demo. So before you did the demo, maybe you agreed, if you like the demo, then we will set you up with a trial account. You'll try it for 14 days, and then if you still enjoy it, we will enter into a license agreement. This is the time now to start doing that. For me, very important is that all sales reps follow a very strict CRM process, including myself. So I always begin with the CRM before I do a demo, and I end with a CRM when the demo is finished. And I actually also plan time for that. So if I have a session of a full hour like this session, then I make sure that I don't have back-to-back meetings, so that I have the time to process that information, take my notes, and put them in my CRM system, and also plan the next action. So the next action typically would be either move them up or down in the pipeline, or out, put in a note, and then also identify what the next step is going to be. And that could be, you know, send them an email in a year, give them a call in a month, or close or send the contract. It could be any of those steps. Okay, so why and what is the importance of a sales demo playbook? I would say there are two important aspects to it. First of all, there is the knowledge and the content. So let's say that you're building up a sales team, and you need to take the knowledge that's in your head, because maybe as a sales leader, you already know all the steps of your demo, you already know all the right questions to ask, but now you decided we're growing, we're going to hire 4 sales representatives. If you don't put that knowledge I was going to say to paper, but you know, to keyboard, to screen, then it's very hard to share it. And the second equally important action is to extract actions out of your knowledge. What are the steps that you have to go through? And of course, you can do this in traditional software. But the problem with traditional software is that these are often 2 separate applications. So often your knowledge will be compiled into PowerPoints, into Google Docs, into Microsoft Office, or Google Documents. And your action items are maybe in a to-do list or in a project planning system. And that's what we help you with at Playbookify. We bring those 2 worlds together into a unified environment. And let's stop this presentation so I can share my screen with you. Let's see here. Get the right browser in place. Are there any new questions coming in, Johan, while I prepare my...
No questions. Some remarks from Marco again. Before you have a demo scheduled at all, many criteria should be done by the sales upfront. Yeah, I think I can definitely agree on that. It's also depending who is giving the demo. When it's a technical person, and it's different to schedule than when it's done by, I'm trying to solve a business issue. So yeah, just some remarks, but no questions at this moment.
Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, and bear with me, because this is the very first time that I'm doing a live demo of Playbookify. So this is quite a unique, thrilling moment for me.
We should celebrate it.
Yeah, things may crash because we're still in an early version of our product. We only started development 6 weeks ago. So when you come into Playbookify, first of all, you'll see a list of all the playbooks that you have in your library. Those could be playbooks that you have created or that a colleague has created or a different department within your organization has created, all depending on what are you doing. So I have one for sending out a newsletter, for a product launch, what are all the steps we go through when we do a product launch, what are our beta programs, etc. But today we're looking at the sales demo playbook. You'll see two things here. First of all, I can run a playbook. So that means that as a sales representative, I'm going to essentially create a copy of my playbook template, which is sort of a standardized way of doing a demo. And then when I run it, I'm maybe giving it to a specific client. So let's say that I'm today doing a demo for, let's say, Sony. Then I'll put in here playbook for Sony. So now it's its own separate instance. And then who's going to run this? I'm going to run it myself. And when is my date? On Thursday. And now let's actually go to the first chapter here. This playbook that I created, and I'll share with everybody who's interested in using this. It begins with an introduction on you know, how is this playbook laid out. And then it also has a checklist here on the right-hand side, so I can go in and say, okay, I got the info from marketing, and I'm going to read this playbook for any new updates that may have been put in since it was originally created. Then how do I prepare for a demo? So there's a couple of steps that I like to do to prepare. And then there's also the checklist. Now let's pretend you do this 10 times a day. Then you probably don't have to go through the content and watch the video on how the preparation is done. But you still, like a pilot, and I'm a private pilot myself, every time I fly a plane, I always use a checklist, because you know, once you're in the air and you make a mistake, it can be fairly painful or quick, depending on how you crash land your plane. So you always want to follow a checklist. And the same you want to do for a demo is, if you already know all of this, you still want to go through your checklist to make sure, did I follow all those different steps? The same applies to giving the demo. Here's the content, but once you're familiar with the content, all you really need to do is go through the checklist items so that you can give those.
Jan, there's a question from Marco. Could Playbookify best seen as a LMS, learning management system for companies?
I would say it's more than that, because typically a learning management system is used only when you're learning. And a playbook is something that you use continuously. So when you're maybe in the learning mode, you are, you know, very actively reading and watching the movies that may be a part of the instruction. But on a daily basis, as you're giving demos, by following the checklist, you're making sure you're ensuring that you didn't miss any of those steps.
Yeah, and therefore it's learning and doing in one hand. So simultaneously, and I think it's more it's more suitable to manage your recurring activities. So it doesn't have to be a learning process. It can be a process that you run every day or every week or every month, and you may need or you may already know how to do it, but it's still important to know what to do, in which order, in what order, and so on. So I think that's basically the difference.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's briefly how a sales demo playbook would look like, and I'm happy to share it with anybody who would like to use this as their starting point. So that's also a capability of our software applications, that you can take templates like this sales demo playbook, make a copy, and then start editing. So if we go back here to my list of playbooks, I can also take this into edit mode, and then I can come in here and say, well, in our case, you know, our introduction is going to be slightly different, so I can come in here and, you know, make it my own with as you can see, a pretty straightforward text editor. Or I could come in here and say, well, we actually need to do an additional check on this opportunity. Let's say get info out of CRM, and add that as a checklist item to this. And now, once I publish this, it will be available to all my sales reps, including the ones that are currently running the playbook. So I can also push changes into playbooks that are currently being run, because a sales demo playbook is typically a brief playbook, so it maybe takes a few days to run it, like the preparation the day before, the follow-up a day after, so perhaps 3 days. But let's say you have an employee onboarding playbook that could take a month, or maybe it is a continuous process, like there's an onboarding of 1 month to get people up to speed, but then every month there is a recurring part of employee training that we do on a continuous basis. So then being able to push changes to users is going to be an important part of the process as well.
Yeah, and Jan, we now see the first version. Can you share a bit about the second version, the new version that's coming in a few weeks, and especially with regards to the sidebar and the form functionalities?
Yes, so we really wanted to get this version out as soon as possible. So this version is available right now. We were able to build it quite quickly. As you can imagine, we had to push a lot of capabilities to a future version. I'm actually not a big fan of demoing versions that you don't have yet. So for a real sales demo, I would not do this. But because our product is so early in the market, we had to build the first version with limited functionality. One of the limitations that you'll see is that this checklist can only have check items at the moment. And what we're developing now is the capability to also have fields, date pickers, text areas, comments in this section as well. So in a future release, hopefully within a month or so, you'll be able to have much richer checklists in this environment as well.
Yeah, and Jan, are you comfortable with sharing the designs via inside.playbookify.io, or do you think that's too early?
Actually, that's a very good point. And for the people that are new to this, if you head to inside.playbookify.io, let's actually do that in real time so you can get a glimpse. And anybody is free to join. This is where we share how we are building this company. So we are a very open company, because we are publishing here what and how this company is being built.
And Jan, sorry to interrupt, but I already did. So now I'm asking you for permission, but I already did. So if you go over to topics and then click product development, I think it's the first post. Yeah, there you can see a first screenshot of what we are currently developing. So it's a bit small, but you can expand this view on the top of your screen. Yeah. So this is the new sidebar. So you now see you're now only able to add a checklist. It's a bit small, but as you can see in the next version, or at least one of the next versions, you will be able to add form fields like file upload, text fields, text areas, drop-down menus, buttons, ratings, switches, toggles, date pickers, and all that. So it's way different than the version that you are now seeing. However, the main structure is basically the same.
That's right there. Yeah, so inside the Playbookify is the place to go if you're curious on what we're doing behind the scenes. Some of the other topics are Dutch only. We recently switched to English because we have quite an international following going on. So all new posts and webinars like this, we promise, will be in English from now and in the future. By the way, this is the moment to ask questions, or if you want to be unmuted to ask it out loud, that is a possibility as well. Just raise your hand or post it in the chat channel, and we're happy to take any questions in this last 10 minutes of the session.
I see quite funny question from Marco again. Is this what you named earlier during the sales demo? Don't paint during the demo. I think it's that was an all other thing, but yeah, maybe you can explain a bit on that. I think it's different, but
it is a little bit different because this is a webinar, so we can't really first ask and confirm with our prospects what the questions are. But yes, if our prospect would not have asked us, I would also like more than checklists, then you should not show definitely not show a future and upcoming version, because yes, that fits in the category of painting pictures that your prospect may not be seeing at all. It's a very good point, a very valid point.
Yes. And with that out of the way, let's see if there are other questions.
This is the interactive part, guys, where you can ask any question that you want.
Yes, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm not sure if people can unmute themselves. Because
no, I don't think they can in a webinar. No, we have to do it. Yeah, they have to raise their hand and then we can unmute them.
But still no questions. Yeah, there is a question. Marco is raising his hand, but I think you are the host, Jan. So maybe you can allow him to talk.
Let's see here if we can do that. Marco.
I don't think so. Yeah, there he is.
Yes, unmute. Hey,
cool.
Jan, great webinar so far. Thank you very much for showing this. The main question: what makes you to start this this solution? Because this is more like a artistic way of business. Is it something which you like to achieve? Do you see this as a missing point in many companies, that they don't use playbooks to do many of the same activities, or what motivates you to start this this endeavor?
Yeah, well, first of all, Johan came up with this idea, but when he explained the idea to me, I recognized a pain that I had at my previous company, Servoy, which we grew from. We started with 4 people, and I was there until we were 100. As you can imagine, if you're going to a growth from 4 to 100 people, you're going through a lot of pains. But one of the biggest pains was it is very hard to share knowledge and actions within the same environment. So I was perfectly able to, for example, write down my sales process in, we used Confluence for that. And Confluence is a pretty fine tool to publish information. But then the actions that should be followed out of that sales process were not followed on a daily basis by my sales team. So they were not going through budget, authority, need, and timeline during every demo, which meant that the effectiveness was not very high. And really, by having these two in the same place, and again, this is not a replacement for a professional sales trainer. This is not a replacement for a learning management system. It really is to get repetitive, complex tasks that often need a description, but also have a very proactive checklist to a user. So that can be customer onboarding, that can be employee onboarding, that can be giving a sales demo, but it can also be the sales process itself. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I also, while we have this chat, see some opportunities for you both. This could be perfectly fitting for those companies who are struggling with let's say, cloud security control matrix elements or ISO certifications, because that process is basically checking all the boxes. So if you build a playbook, make your company ISO proof, or make your cybersecurity steps using this playbook, it doesn't give you the same value as when one high expensively paid consultant from UI is coming to you, but it will give you the opportunity to just do a self-check. Okay, have we done this? Check, 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 check. So I see this more as a tooling for a community where you can simply say, hey, don't be a newbie, here's a playbook.
That's right.
And maybe you could change the name in instead of Playify in Monkey See, Monkey Do, but that's more from a from a commercial standpoint. But I really like the idea, because I'm a technical guy. You're a technical guy. I listen to your technical podcast, which is, by the way, Jan, awesome with Avas, the last one. So just a shout out for you. But that's maybe sidetracked. So I from a technical standpoint, this is very useful. I'm not sure if this is also very useful for commercial standpoint, except that in some organizations you have stand-ups, and then you have a process, so there could it fit in.
Yeah, and you make a very valid point on also the tracking aspects, and yes, the playbooks also have a full audit trail going on in the background. We didn't show that, but in the background, it is keeping a track of, this person checked in this playbook this check mark with a timestamp. So yeah, you could use it for legal purposes, or for if you are ISO certified, and you have to go through a certain test every day or every week or every month, then you can definitely use it for that as well. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Thanks for your feedback.
Good questions. Yeah.
And there's another podcast episode, a technical version coming on in a few days with another financial application, which is Moneybird. So keep Spotify by the end. So I think it will be live in a week or so, Jan?
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah. So stay tuned. All right. Any other questions so far?
It looks like everybody's out of questions.
Yeah, and I think it's almost 5 p.m., which means we can maybe we can announce the next webinar, because in a few weeks we will do another webinar on this topic, but then a bit broader. Then it's not about the sales demo playbook, but a sales playbook in general. So if you haven't seen that already, you can see more details via insight.playbookify.io, and let's meet again.
That's right. Yes. Well, thanks all for attending, and the recording will be available for. Well, are we going to post it to Insight? I guess we are going to post it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks all. And if you do have any questions, then please head to insight.playbookify.io to ask any questions that you may have. Thanks for attending.
Yes. Thanks, René. Thanks, Stefan. Ciao.